And one of the things that really struck me was when we started talking about mental health, you were actually talking about physical health and how we really see them as two separate entities, don't we? We're like, oh, somebody's got a physical health problem, they need to go to a medical doctor or they need to go to the hospital. And then you've got somebody who's got a mental health problem, which means that, you know, they need to go and see somebody who's specialist in mental well-being. Whereas for yourself, you know, it's almost as if they were completely merged and they were inseparable. And so, you know, we started talking about mental health, but then you said actually the reason why you started to explore your internal world and your emotions and your psychology was when you started having physical health problems and when the suffering was too much, the pain was too much, and there wasn't an obvious cure and it wasn't settling, that you then thought actually I need to explore, or you were encouraged to explore the emotional side of things. So I think that's really interesting, isn't it? Because out there, I think we do have this notion of mental and physical, whereas we know, like even from a Gurbani perspective, from a psychology perspective, that the mind, our body are not separate at all, that they both interact and interlink and affect each other in so many profound ways. Like in Gurbani, they always talk about mind and body together, Hana? Like one book that comes as Simro, Simar, Simar Sukh Pavo, Gal Kalesh, Tan Mahe Mitavo. That doing the Simran helps to remove the Kalesh, the conflict within the mind and the body. And so I find that mind and body comes together a lot within Gurbani. And you know, you've done a lot of work around how the mind affects the body. And I'm just wondering whether we want to talk a little bit about that. You know, how do thoughts affect our physiology, even at that basic level?
So while you were talking, I was thinking of that Bhakti about Gussa man na hadai, dehi rog na lage, palle sab kich paaye. So there's that direct correlation between when you're having gussa, when you have that anger in your mind, and then Guru's talking about dehi rog na lage. Like, you know, there's that direct correlation between your mind and your body. So the way that I've come to understand it more recently, so for me, it was that long journey, and I've learned a lot of things since. And what has really helped me is to understand that connection. So we have this cycle, right? So every time you have a thought, that creates a chemical reaction in your body that's called an emotion. So if we're feeling angry, I mean, we can test it out. Like, you know, how did you feel when you were last excited? When you were looking forward to something? It's a thought. You're looking forward to, you know, a birthday party, a holiday, but actually you're having a physical reaction with that. You might get butterflies in your stomach, and you might get the same thing if you're feeling scared about something, like, you know, you got a big presentation or doing this, you're going to have that chemical reaction. So we know that thoughts and emotions are interlinked in that way. We just take that for granted, right? If someone gets anxiety, especially children, you know, they'll tend to get a stomach ache. So we know that. And what happens is when we have that thought, it creates that chemical reaction in our body, and that makes us feel a certain way. So we call those feelings. And now based on that thought and that feeling, then we do something. So if we overcome with anger because we feel like someone said something against us, it's led to that emotion, but now we might lash out at someone. So that becomes the cycle that we get stuck in. And what happens is over time, that becomes who we are. So
let's clarify. So you're saying that the thoughts that we think over and over again that create that chemical reaction, the feeling, which then creates a certain set of actions or way of being in the world, and then that then feeds back into thoughts again, doesn't it? So we've got this cycle that repeats itself over and over in different ways. And then what you're saying is then that becomes our personality,
that's
our way of living. So we end up then, and what we know as well from the science and the neuroscience is those particular pathways of thoughts, feelings and actions, they get etched within our brain, in terms of neural networks within our brain. So, and it's almost like there's this expectancy effect, isn't it? So you wake up in the morning, for example, and your brain already knows which neural networks, it's already got those contained within it. So it's like, okay, now it's time to feel anger because that's how you feel every morning. And then you go and have your breakfast, and then you see, I don't know, your husband, and then now it's time to feel this because you see him every morning. And so it's almost as if and we know this about we're going a bit deeper now, but thinking about the subconscious mind, which contains all of these individual programs that are linked to individual thoughts, feelings, and actions. And so most of the time we're just operating on the basis of a program, of a habit, and we're not choosing very much of how we respond and how we act. And, you know, when we think about mental health, we see it as one thing. But in fact, from our experience and the work we've done with ourselves, our own journeys, and with clients, what we see is just that over time, these thoughts, feelings, actions, cycles have just been repeated, become etched within our bodies and minds. And we just live them day in, day out. And that's why, like, if you look back at your year or 2 years or 5 years, we sometimes look back and we think, well, we haven't changed at all. Like, we're doing the same things. And even if, you know, so many of us have the intention to change and we want to be different and we have goals and we want to change habits, but it's so difficult in practice. And when we come to start to understand the science behind it, we come to realize that actually it's because, like Gurbani says, kar kar karna, likh le jao. These actions repeated over and over again, they become us. We write them down and they become our destiny almost.